District of Conservation is sponsored by the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, better known as CFACT. To learn more about our sponsor, head over to cfact.org. Thanks for listening to the program.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome to District of Conservation. I'm your host, Gabriella Hoffman. This podcast offers a sober examination into all things hunting, fishing, shooting sports, energy, environment, and the public policy surrounding it. And this podcast also specializes in original interviews that you won't hear elsewhere. Here's what I have for you today. Environmentalists, aka net zero proponents, are coming after your pet dogs. I wish I were kidding. This is something printed in Mother Jones, which is a very far left magazine, and I figured it deserved some coverage here because first it's humans are bad, despoiling the environment. Next target, cows are second worst, and then dogs. Third, they're going to come up with something else. Meat consumption is bad too, which goes back to humans being despoilers of the environment. Before I dip into this, why is this common thinking, or why is this thinking rather, it's not common thinking, it's very extreme and obtuse, not held by the majority of people. But why is this extreme climate thinking becoming so prevalent, or rather covered in the news as extensively as it is? Perhaps it's done to trigger outrage, to generate clicks, what have you. But this is all part of rewilding and humans and other entities being irredeemably bad for the environment. So you have to have a scapegoat. Now, dogs are the latest scapegoat of choice. So let's read through this study. This comes from Australia. And I hate to source Mother Jones, but this is where it originated from. They write, dogs have, quote, extensive and multifarious, end quote, environmental impacts disturbing wildlife, polluting waterways, and contributing to carbon emissions, new research has found. An Australian review of existing studies has argued that, quote, the environmental impact of owned dogs is far greater, more insidious, and more concerning than generally recognized, end quote. They write, while the environmental impact of cats is well known, the comparative effect of pet dogs has been poorly acknowledged, the researcher said. The review, published in the journal Pacific Conservation Biology, highlighted the impacts of the world's, quote, commonest large carnivore, end quote, in killing and disturbing native wildlife, particularly shore birds. They're going off of what they claim is occurring in Australia. In Australia, attacks by unrestrained dogs on little penguins in Tasmania may contribute to colony collapse. Modeling suggests, while a study of animals taken to the Australia Zoo Wildlife Hospital found that mortality was highest after dog attacks, which was the second most common reason for admission after car strikes. In the U.S., studies have found that deer, foxes, and bobcats were less active or avoided wilderness areas where dogs were allowed, while other research shows that insecticides from flea and tick medications kill aquatic invertebrates when they wash off into waterways. Dog feces can also leave scent traces and affect soil chemistry and plant growth. They also claim in Mother Jones that the carbon footprint of pets is also significant. A 2020 study found the dry pet food industry has an environmental footprint of around twice the land area of the UK, with greenhouse gas emissions 56 to 151 MT CO2, equivalent to the 60th highest emitting country. And I don't recall what that, metric tons, I think, of CO2. Yeah, metric tons. MT is metric tons CO2. The review's leading author, Professor Bill Bateman of Curtin University, said the research did not intend to be censorious, but aimed to raise awareness of the environmental impacts of man's best friend, with whom humans' domestic relationship dates back several millennia. To a certain extent, we give a free pass to dogs because they are so important to us, not just as working dogs, but also as companions, he said, pointing to the huge benefits of dogs had on owners' mental and physical health. He also noted that dogs displayed vital roles in conservation work, such as wildlife detection. Although we've pointed out these issues with dogs in natural environments, there is that other balancing side, which is that people will probably go out and really enjoy the environment around them and perhaps feel more protective about it because they're out there walking with their dog in this. This is so ridiculous. So basically, they were canceling out the negative with the positive. And this is done in Australia. We could conduct a similar study, and you all should know this, that a lot of scientific studies can be biased in favor of a preferred conclusion because they're very subjective in nature. When you are getting funding from the government, you can determine an outcome to your liking of a study. You can have factors and variables. You can have a hypothesis and back up your hypothesis with conclusions. Anyone can do this for or against certain things, especially when it comes to climate change and environmental issues. But if something was conducted here, I bet you would have a very different outcome. And while I do get bothered by people not picking up after their dogs, you can't say every dog owner is responsible for despoiling the environment because, again, this goes back to the hierarchy of climate alarmism. Who are the worst perpetrators of the so-called climate crisis? It's humans. Humans own dogs. Humans eat meat. So this isn't going to stop at dogs. This is going to go further to stop cows. And we will not see, thankfully, federal government posturing here. It's going to be hopefully tossed to the sideline for several years and hopefully beyond, because that's pure insanity. But you still have a lot of environmentalists, and we're in Earth Month. It's soon going to be Earth Day. We have a lot of people who have this Malthusian, get rid of people thinking that encapsulates their environmental worldviews. So they think humans are horrible arbiters of nature. They're despoiling everything. We have to return nature to its original state. And that's an impossible goal. It makes no sense conservation-wise, but it's also extreme and ridiculous and not normal to hold these views if we're being honest. It's a very radical, small subset of environmentalists. It should be shunned. Like, why would you want fewer dogs, fewer people on the landscape? The more you have people, the more you can teach and impart to people conservation best practices. You could teach people to be responsible with their dogs. Dogs have many purposes. Dogs are integral and important to ranching. Ranchers are big conservationists. They have shepherd dogs or dogs that manage and protect their livestock. So you can credit working dogs for being part of conservation. You have active hunting dogs that work with hunters to retrieve game. So they play their role in conservation in that way too. And even if you don't have a working dog or your working dog is your companion, although I personally would not get a working dog just to be a companion, I'd actually put the dog to use, hunting, ranching, something of that nature. But love those very high intensity breeds. They're great. I love GSPs and working dogs. They're great. What is the ultimate goal? So you're exploring this. Do you want to eradicate dogs? What's the deal here? Like, what's the point of putting this out? You're doing this to cause a frenzy. You're doing this to divide the country. You will never see Americans who love dogs almost as much as children, which I disagree with personally. I think children come before people, rather, children especially can come before pets. And I would never fall into the line of being a pet parent when maybe one day I own a dog. If I were to own a dog, I wouldn't put the dog on a pedestal above the kids that I would have in the future. I just don't see it that way. I think it's a little crazy that some people do this. But I think you could be pro-kid, pro-dog, pro-human, pro-dog, because they're attacking both the climate alarmists, especially through a study like this, again, from Australia. So take it with a grain of salt, this study, because of where it comes from. And again, remember that a lot of this can be done because of funding that people get from the government. So if you wanted to commission a study, let's say you're an academic, you could do one that finds the exact opposite, that could argue that dogs are actually good for the environment. You could cite dogs working with cattlemen. You could cite dogs working with hunters. You could cite dogs, doing conservation related work, helping to stop poaching in Africa and other countries. Dogs are very essential for stopping poaching efforts. Did you know that? I don't think you did. Some of you listening. But dogs have multiple purposes. They are man and woman's best friend. And I hate that they're being scapegoated like this because it's really ridiculous. Like, again, the climatists are finding a new scapegoat because they're bored. They see that their agenda is crumbling here in the United States and even globally. People are not buying this anymore. And pushing out these studies, especially here in America, it's like an 80-20 issue. I see people are using that tagline and that talking point, which is accurate. Like, you go after dogs in this country, you will tick off a lot of people. Mark my words. Even though I fully disagree with this notion of pet parents. I like dogs. I want to own one in the future if I have the bandwidth and the time to do so. I would love to get a sporting dog or one of the furry, Swiss breeds. I like Pyrenees. I like Bernese. Great, lovable dogs. I don't think they would be bad for the environment. I think they are a net positive why not? But they first came for people, then for the cows. And of course, it's a natural progression in the line of craziness that they go after dogs. Also, coffee. Meat, as I mentioned, nothing is safe from these radical climate alarmists, especially during Earth Month. Read the study for yourself, reach your own conclusion, but I think the majority of people reading this will say, okay, this is a step too far even for me. Even if you don't agree with my thinking on conservation or you're perhaps a preservationist, I think even preservationists will say, this totally detracts from our mission, or this totally detracts from our goals to draw awareness to climate change. So don't go after people's dogs. It's not a recipe for success. If you enjoyed this installment of District of Conservation, I would love to know your feedback. Send it my way. Please be sure to leave us reviews on Apple, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are played, and also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to never miss a beat nor a guest announcement. Thanks so much for listening to District of Conservation. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please share the podcast to those who may be interested in learning more about these critical natural resources, environment, energy issues.